Okay, what to expect if Trump bombs Iran? I think, many military analysts already know, you know, or there's, I think, a consensus of what will happen. And I'll try to explain what I think they look at or what I look at. There are many ways to look at this. The first thing I would say is go watch some interviews, some current interviews of Iranians before you make a judgment of what they are based on what you hear U.S. State Department or Israeli people saying. Go listen to them directly. Listen from the horse's mouth, and I think you'll find that they do not. They're not like down with America, death to Israel. You don't see that they're very calm, very, very calm. So why are they always so calm? Well, first thing is look at things from their perspective. I don't know if you realize, but Iran was in a war with Iraq for 8 years, from 1980 to 1988. So about 37 years ago, the war ended. And all Iranians, well, not all Iranians, but most old Iranians have a memory of that time. Iraq was given weapons by France and the Soviet Union. They had a very modern, substantial air force and tanks and weapons. So really, Iraq, even though they had a smaller population, technologically was vastly superior to Iran at the time. And after 8 years, did they win? No, they never got anywhere. So you look at it from an Iranian point of view. If around 250,000 Iranians died fighting that war over 8 years, and of course probably in the millions were injured, so that's sort of how Iran looks at the past. That the superpowers went after it, tried to kill it, and after 8 years they didn't succeed. And even though again Iran had the weaker military, it survived. So for the U.S., for the Iranians to think that the U.S. is going to beat Iran now when it couldn't beat it 37 years ago, right? It's just they're just calm. It's like nothing. They've already been through it before, and Iran's even in a better place today than it was 37 years ago. How is it better? Well, Iran's population back then was around 40 million. It's about 90 million today, so the population has doubled. The U.S., even back then when it attacked Iraq, in the 90s, it took about 6 months for it to get its fighting force over there in a real way, to get the 500,000, whatever it was, right? But today, the U.S. has 50% less ships. And again, you can Google all of this or AI all of this, that the U.S. does not have the same logistics to bring soldiers over there. So it's going to take 6 months to a year. So if Trump bombed Iran tomorrow, if you press the button, Iran would probably feel it has to respond. It would have to hit an American base in the Middle East. Now, Iran is surrounded by these American bases. There's anywhere from 40 to 50,000 Americans there, and they will hit them. And when they hit them, America will have to go back. And it would be nice to think that both sides would come to their senses and negotiate something, but I don't see it. Once the direct war has started, each nation will not back down. So anyway, so each nation would not back down. It would take 6 months for a year for the United States to get troops over there, and Europe is not going to go along with the United States this time. No way. No way. I mean, one is just a losing battle, right? And so anyway, they're not going to go. And Iran sells most of its oil to China. And even back then, Iran was getting the components needed to wage war from China, not necessarily tanks or stuff like that. But even today, like Iran can hit precise targets in Israel from 1,000 miles away. And it does this by buying components from China and putting them together in rockets. So Iran is much more capable today than it was 40 years ago. Way, way, way more capable. And though the U.S. and the West have made some improvements in their military hardware, it's nothing compared to how far Iran has catched up and even surpassed the U.S. I don't believe the U.S. has any. Well, I mean, it can build them. It might have some, but it doesn't have like a meaningful supply of ballistic rockets that can hit targets 1,000 miles away. So, yeah, if Trump attacks anything in Iran, it will be war between Iran and the United States. And the United States, it doesn't make a difference how bad you think Iran is. I don't care if you think the mullahs are horrible and they flail women alive and whatever you think about them. War is war. And this is the facts. Iran is a mountainous territory. They've had 30 years, they've had decades since that last war to prepare for the next one. The U.S. has only become militarily much weaker. So how do you see it happening? And those that say, oh, well, the Iranian regime will get replaced and the Iranian people will rise up and, they'll make friends with the U.S. No, no, that's not how it ever works. If one country attacks another country's people, they all rally around the flag. It doesn't make a difference who their leaders are. They're not going to one day, if the Ayatollah gets killed, create some other government. No, they're going to continue the war against the United States. And why wouldn't they? Right? Why wouldn't they if you're an Iranian? You're an Iranian, you've watched a bunch of your fellow countrymen get killed. They have nothing to do with the Ayatollah, right? Why are you going to make peace with somebody that would attack you in that way? You're not. They're not your friends. How is the United States a friend to Israel? How is Israel a friend to Israel? What have they ever done for Israel? Again, you have to do something if you want to have some sort of conversation, right? I mean, the U.S. said, "Oh, we look forward to the last round of negotiations about the nuclear bombs," and during it, Israel did a sneak attack with U.S. help. So if you're Iranian, why are you ever going to trust anything Israel, the United States, says? So anyway. You watch Iranians speak for themselves, they're very clear about this. We've been through it before. We do not want war with the United States. We don't want war with anyone. We're not the one that attacked anyone first. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves to the bitter end, as we did from 1980 to 1988. So the choice is yours. So we'll see what happens. But I hope Trump doesn't do it. I think, he's not a warmonger. He has a sense for this, but he's very old and he's surrounded by people that want to go to this war. They don't care. They're not looking at any of this rationally. They're they're crazy to town. But hey, it's how we have wars, people in crazy town. So anyway, I just wanted to say that if you don't know about any of this history, I suggest you look it up. I suggest you listen to Iranians directly, in their own words, explain how they see things, look at the facts. Can the U.S. beat Iran? No. It would just mean tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of Americans dead, and Iran would continue to have the borders it has today, that had in 1980, 1988. Nothing is changing over there as far as that's concerned. So it's just a question of how hard do we want to pound our head against that wall. Thanks for watching.